One of the most discussed stories is the job cuts at Corus. The steelmaker is laying off 2,500 workers across the UK.
But we're currently involved in communicating with each employee, explaining to them exactly what this restructuring plan's about and how it affects all the individual people. The plan we've revealed today has been carefully thought through over a period of time, and it actually takes into account all the lessons of the past and actually helps us to look towards the future in our markets that we will be serving going forwards.
Well, the worst hit area will be Corus's plant in Rotherham, where over 700 jobs will be lost. Sky's Tessa Chapman is there for us tonight. Tessa?
Yes, this plant has been the hardest hit. It equates to around half of the workforce here, and those redundancies will be across the board, from engineers, steel workers, electricians to white-collar workers in human resources and finance. Some of the people I've spoken to here today have worked here for as long as 40 years. As the gentleman from Corus just said then, bosses here have spent the day explaining to people what is happening and why. Why is because the demand has just plummeted. The automotive and construction industries that have traditionally taken so much of their orders are just in decline, and so if people aren't buying cars and houses, so it affects the steel industry. I spoke to some of the workers here today and I described their mood of one of downbeat resignation.
It's pretty desperate. People are just because there's nothing else available in present economic climate, then people are going to be scrambling for work in this area.
But we've got to make best on it. There's nothing we can do about it. By April, 625 to go.
For those who do leave their jobs, it's going to mean re-entering the jobs market at a very tough time. For those who retain their jobs, there is something worrying in what Corus have said, those words matching payroll costs to production, which, reading between the lines, implies possible pay cuts for those who do stay. Corus are telling us they're doing everything they possibly can for all their workers, whether it involves retraining or keeping them on. They say their key message here is that they must keep some production going, so when there is eventually an upturn, they have the capacity here to deal with that and once again become a force in British steelmaking.
Thanks, Tessa. Well, Andre Kotas is Chief Executive of the online steel consultancy Steelonthenet.com. He joins us now from our central London studio. Andre, thanks for being with us. Why are things so grim for Corus?
Well, it's a pretty desperate situation, not just for Corus, but for most steelmakers worldwide. Volumes are down from the peak in the middle of 2008. Volumes are down by about 30%. Prices are down by another 30%. In some parts of the world, volumes are down by 50%. Places like Kazakhstan is 60% closed down in terms of volume. So if you have a business which has got an income of, say, £10 million a year coming in, your volumes are down, your prices are down both at the same time, all of a sudden you're down to 4 million a day from 10 million a day. How do you cope with that when your fixed costs are at 6 or 7 million?
It's a very good question, isn't it? Let's just look around the blogosphere for this. A steel industry blogger is quoting unions here, saying they've called the job cuts a body blow to UK manufacturing. But given those statistics you've just given us, it's hard to see any other way but to lay people off, isn't it, Andrew?
Well, it's a problem that potentially could get worse. You have to ask yourself the question, really, why are we flying in the face of economic realities in the UK? We have no iron ore in this country. We have no cheap coal. Our energy costs, by all accounts, particularly relevant to electric steel making, 30% or so higher than on the continent. Our labour costs, compared to some of our new East European partners in the EU, are 2 or 3 times higher. I mean, how can we possibly compete?
You seem to be suggesting that the answer is to give up. We just shouldn't try and make steel over here.
Well, I think I'm suggesting actually that the problem may get worse. In Rotherham, we've got electric furnace steelmaking, but it's integrated steelmaking that really I'm referring to, where we may still see matters getting worse. The problem is we need to take a longer-term view. We need to take a look at what some of our colleagues are doing in other parts of the world. Look at our German colleagues who are investing in Brazil. in 3 or 4 million tons of steel making, looking at low labour cost countries for producing the steel and importing it here. That's maybe what we ought to be thinking about in the UK a little bit more.
Right. Well, that chimes a little bit with this particular blog. Somebody writing particularly on the impact of the industry, of course, in Wales. A lot of the cuts are going to fall in that particular part of the country. And the blogger goes on to say that, I think as you're hinting, other major steel providers are subsidised. Not ours. What will the government do? Is there a case that just like the banks have needed help, so the steel industry needs help?
Well, I think we've also had a tremendous loss of opportunity here in the UK. We've seen 10 years go by with plants, low-cost manufacturing plants in places like Poland and the Czech Republic and further afield in the Ukraine even, fall under the ownership hammer of Mr. Mittal, other plants falling to US steel companies in Slovakia, the Spaniards moving into Poland. What have we done here in the UK about relocating our manufacturing cost base to more competitive producing countries? Very little is the answer.
And could it be done, or are we closing the stable door after this particular horse has bolted?
Well, I think there have been various forays and interests, but in terms of bottom line result, very little evident happening here at Corus in terms of those sorts of actions, in terms of achievements. Many other companies, global companies, are investing very actively, not just in Brazil, as I mentioned, but in India, in China. I think that is probably the way to go.
All right, Andre, grim news indeed, but thank you for being our guest tonight. Thanks for taking
My
part in the
pleasure,
programme.
thank you.